Hello, and welcome everyone to another episode of Riz Talks. I'm your host, Riz, and thank you for joining me today. This episode, we're going to attempt something truly grim. We're going to put a price tag on human suffering. Not because that price tag makes it right, it doesn't, but because shocking numbers sometimes do what shocking headlines can't. They force us to think again, not take for granted anything. In 2025, the headline cost of violence reached approximately $19.1 trillion. That's climbed to a 25-year high. Militaries rearmed, and 122 million people now live as refugees or displaced persons. Global military spending hit nearly $3 trillion, its highest level since the Cold War. But those are just the visible numbers, the visible explosions. How do we measure the silent massacres, the rapes that never get reported, the doctors killed while delivering babies? The ancient cities turned to dust. And then, the strangest part, who profits from this catastrophe? We'll investigate the five fingerprints war leaves on humanity. Today's episode is titled Warped World. We look at five specific ways wars destroy us: targeted killings, sexual violence, targeting ethnic groups, the murder of medical and humanitarian staff, the demolition of entire cities, and the theft of natural resources. This might make you angry. It should make you angry. Let us challenge the way we see the world and ourselves. Are we truly the civilized species we claim to be? Starting with assassinations, the quietest form of death, the targeted, calculated, one by one elimination of a country's brightest politicians, scientists, media personalities, and others. We're not talking about soldiers dying on battlefields. In 2025, Israel launched what could be the most sophisticated assassination campaign in modern history. Israeli intelligence reportedly identified over a dozen high value targets, then assassinated these scientists in coordinated airstrikes in June 2025, in one go, eliminating them with surgical precision. But that's not an isolated case. Researchers have gathered data on nearly 100 instances of scientist targeting from 1944 through 2025. There are recorded 9 attempted or successful Russian assassinations in Ukraine between 2023 and 2025. In the United States, during the first half of 2025 alone, researchers documented nearly 150 politically motivated attacks. Here's the awkward part nobody wants to discuss. When the US Congress imposes sanctions on a country and provides intelligence about the location of its scientists to other powers, are we part of this machine? Let's talk now about raping and ethnic cleansing. We need to talk about the unspoken weapon of war. Forgive me if this sounds dark, but you know how we talk and like to pretend that modern warfare is civilized? Surgical strikes, smart bombs, clean wars, it's all a lie. In 1994, the world stood by while over just 100 days, an estimated 250,000 to 500,000 women were systematically raped in the Rwandan genocide. That's the equivalent of 5,000 women per day. HIV positive men were deliberately sent to rape women, turning sexual violence into a slow acting biological weapon. And here's what's happening today, according to the United Nations. In Gaza, barely a few hospitals are even partially operational. In this vacuum of humanitarian protection, sexual violence surges. Thousands of prisoners arrested without due process are regularly subjected to sexual violence and torture, leading to deaths in the underground chambers. In Sudan, midwives who continue to deliver babies are taking huge risks. In Haiti, gang violence against women has spiraled so severely that United Nations sexual violence support centers have had to close or relocate. The uncomfortable question that must be asked: rape is a crime committed by individuals, but when a military orders soldiers to cut off water supplies to a region with a collapsed healthcare system, knowing it will cause women to give birth in the rubble, is that not also a form of weaponized violence? Where do we draw the line? Next, let's talk about murdering journalists, doctors, and aid workers. Now, this is something that should be sacred, but isn't. The people who run towards explosions to save lives: doctors, midwives, paramedics, humanitarians driving ambulances, aid workers. In 2024, the world recorded 383 aid workers killed. These are just the ones that are recorded. Nearly half of them, more than 180, were killed in Gaza alone. The United Nations chief for this section called it a shameful indictment of international inaction and apathy. But 2025 is even worse. As of mid August 2025, 206 workers had already been killed. And now in 2026, the aggressors do the double tap, hit the same place a second time when relief is there to make sure that they maximize killings of these people. Meanwhile, medical staff are being slaughtered. The World Health Organization reported almost 11,500 attacks on medical facilities in 2025 alone, resulting in nearly 2,000 deaths, double the number from 2024. About 81% were carried out by state forces, not rebels. In Gaza between October 23 and August 25, at least 700 healthcare workers were confirmed killed, and many arrested, some still in prisons. Hospitals that are supposed to be sanctuaries became graveyards. Medics died trying to save others, and some were buried by the bulldozers of the same army that bombed them. I want to tell you a very specific story. A senior midwife named Ida in northern Gaza told the United Nations that because the delivery room was under fire, she delivered babies in the hallways using mobile phones for lights. Ida was killed in an airstrike along with 37 members of her family. Think about that. She was a midwife. She wasn't smuggling weapons. She was bringing life into a war zone, and the world watched her burn. Next, we talk about demolishing cities. The first three segments were about people. This one is about place, the bricks and mortar of civilization itself. Simply put, modern warfare is increasingly turning entire cities into demolition sites. Take Gaza. Over 220,000 buildings have been completely wiped out or damaged to some extent, representing roughly 90% of all structures. The Israeli military has prioritized the destruction of tall residential towers, wiping entire neighborhoods off the map, house by house, floor by floor. And now that continues in Lebanon. This isn't collateral damage anymore. Politicians now openly advocate for the Gaza model to describe systematic demolition that leaves essential infrastructure for life destroyed, forcing mass displacement. Satellite imagery shows cities that were once grids of homes and schools have become deserts of concrete dust. Millions of tons of rubble remain, and underneath that rubble, uncounted human bodies, unknown quantities of unexploded ordnance, and the shattered hopes of generations who once called these streets home. When we see footage of a city reduced to rubble, what we are really seeing is erased history, erased universities, libraries, memories. The rubble just stays there as a monument to inhumanity. And finally, stealing resources. Most of it is for that purpose, grabbing land and resources. We arrive at the ugliest reason wars start and continue: resources, the plundering, the looting, the corporate complicity. Because nobody bombs a country just because they hate its flag. Often they want what's underneath it. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the M23 rebel group, reportedly backed by Rwanda, seized control of the Rubaya coltan mines. Coltan, by the way, is what powers your smartphones, the one that you're watching this on probably. In 2020, they exported at least 150 metric tons of illicit coltan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo has now filed criminal complaints against major international tech companies for allegedly using these conflict minerals. And there's the story of Gaza Marine, an offshore natural gas field estimated to contain about 38 trillion cubic feet of natural gas reserves, located just off the Gazan coast. Control of this gas field has reportedly been shifted, with Israeli entities awarded exploration licenses with legal powers. The legal owners are blocked from development. It's a pattern as old as colonialism, dressed in new clothes, including very expensive smart suits. What about the kidnapping of Maduro? Was it not to get oil for the refineries? When we talk about conflict minerals and resource wars, the uncomfortable question is who buys these stolen resources and who closes their eyes while they do it? Because the tech industry, the fertilizer industry, the energy industry, all of them profit from wars they claim to condemn. That is hypocrisy at a truly staggering scale. Before we wrap up, I promise you a comparison. Are the perpetrators of these crimes any different from the perpetrators of history? Let's compare. Genghis Khan destroyed entire cities and erected pyramids of human skulls. The Mongols used mass rape to terrify and subdue populations. The Tartars salted earth so nothing would grow again. So these figures from history are remembered as monsters. And now compare Israel has destroyed so many buildings. These have been documented. Schools, hospitals, universities. The United States directly funded and armed multiple sides of conflicts where resources plunder is rampant and civilian infrastructure has been demolished. NATO and European powers have continued to purchase minerals, gas, and phosphates from conflict zones without any meaningful accountability mechanisms. Are the methods of these modern states truly different from the methods of the Mongols or the Nazis? The Nazis had gas chambers, modern states have precision missiles that level maternity wards. The result for the families on the ground is the same: death, destruction, grief, and profits for a very small number of very powerful people far, far away. The world has learned nothing, or rather, it has learned how to do evil more efficiently. The systems are larger, the weapons are cleaner, and the perpetrators sit in glass towers instead of on horseback. But the victims, the crying mothers, the starving children, the dead, the victims are the same. So, if we recognize the crimes of the past as genocide, why do you accept these modern equivalents as geopolitics? Are we living in a way that will leave this world better than we found it? Because right now it seems we're living in a way that is leaving it burned, pillaged, and silent except for the crying of orphans. It's now time to act, which means whatever you can do to effect change in your capacity. The pen is mightier than the sword, and collectively we can make the change. Demand supply chain transparency. Call out your government's hypocrisy when it condemns wars but funds weapons. Think again. Please share the message with others, challenge ideas, join the conversation, and subscribe. This is Riz Talks. Be curious, be kind, and maybe we can do better than the generations before us.